Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere.
The Verdict.
This is our after-show podcast where we look back at the previous episode, number 32, Flight in Senegal during the Bronze Age. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, check it out, or else there will be spoilers ahead.
I'm just twiddling my spit guard, my plosive pouch. Mary had a little lamb.
Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere. My name is Ryan and I am here in the studio with the fragrant Peter Goddard.
I'm of mixed emotions about that description.
And the effervescent Mr. Paul Dursley.
Effervescent, I prefer deliquescent.
Delicatessen?
Can't you hear as well as speak? Deliquescent.
What does that mean?
Well, can't you remember your O-level chemistry?
No.
Well, no, deliquescent is, a salt that takes in water from the atmosphere. Yeah, if you leave salt out, it'll just get damp over time. So, deliquescent, that's your word of the day.
Deliquescent.
Hey Pete, how you doing?
I am okay. I went walking this weekend, so I have a little blister, but nothing too terrible to write home about.
You like hiking, Paul?
No.
Would you have gone with Pete on his little hike?
Absolutely not.
What if I offered to push you in a little wheelbarrow? I think we should do the Dursley Decathlon, which is a range of events all featuring carrying, lifting or pushing Paul Dursley various places.
Didn't realise you were that strong.
We could do the shot Paul.
I had a medical last week and I learned that my weight is creeping up again.
Well, that's interesting because your weight is part of your physical appearance. And it just so happens that we had some feedback this week.
Yeah, so I met with one of our listeners at the weekend and they were effusing about you as much as anything. And I wanted to know what they thought you looked like based on the sound of your voice.
Well, because that's a fair thing because you keep yourself hidden. You don't go on social media. You haven't got any pictures on our website. You're a mystery. You're a mystery man.
You're a mystery man, but you have a voice and it is possible to construct.
We'll keep it like that.
Well, it's too late, mate, because
you've got a photo fit, have you?
He's got a very clear idea of what you look like. He's about 65 years old.
Right.
He is a wearer of glasses.
Interesting.
He's slightly round, but not obese.
Oh, interesting. Doctors would say otherwise.
Well, yes, apparently. This wasn't a medical opinion, fortunately.
Right.
Full head of hair in grey. Wears a tie to do the podcast every time.
A tie?
A tie.
The podcast tie.
And that was his view of what Paul Dursley looks like.
Yeah, I think he's almost 50% right, isn't he?
Yeah, it's pretty good, I think.
So, Peter.
Yes, sir.
We sat through your episode.
You endured, sir. Trying to sway the judge right from the get-go. This is very dubious behaviour.
Well, I was looking at the scores earlier this week, and you have a much higher grade overall than I do on average.
Well, I'm fairly confident that this one's going to struggle due to the mix of topic and time period, which was rather challenging. So, but we'll see. You never know.
See.
I did it. I gave it my best shot in any event.
Well, the judge is in session, and so everything that you have done so far is now been reviewed and the evidence scrutinised. All right, so, but before we begin, why don't we have a little reminder? Could you do a little 1-minute summary for us?
Certainly can.
Okay, well then go.
We went to Senegal, whose capital Dakar is the westernmost point of mainland Africa and is the finishing point for the Paris-Dakar Rally. We learned about Teranga, Senegalese hospitality, and its plethora of UNESCO World Heritage sites. Our journey in time took us back to the Bronze Age, which didn't actually happen in sub-Saharan Africa. They went straight to the Iron Age. We met the migrating birds, including the big-mouthed pelican, who flew over some man-made islands made of oyster and cockle shells called shell middens, which are beloved by archaeologists. We also flew with the Senegal parrot into the dry savannah, where we encountered ancient baobab trees that can live over 1,000 years and function as landmarks, burying places for griot storytellers, and the source of water, giving them the name the Tree of Life. We drank delicious hibiscus bissap. We also tried baobab powder, arguably less delicious, and finished with a Senegalese feast to celebrate the birthday of one Ryan Weir.
Hooray!
That was last week's episode done.
summarised nicely. Nice one, son. Now we're over to a young Dursley, who's gonna tell you what he thought of thee. He'll take you apart without any care. He's the lovely Paul Dursley. The lovely Paul Dursley.
One day you'll be on the train and someone will be humming that, like, nice one, son.
Yeah.
I hate that. I really do. I shouldn't say this, of course.
He's the wonderful Paul Dursley.
Dum dum.
So, Paul, what's your thoughts on Senegal?
I didn't really know much about Senegal. I know more about the Gambia. Okay. But you obviously don't. Well, you said the Gambia was French. It's not. It's English.
Well, okay.
No, it's quite simple. It just shows who the power was then. You know, there's a very nice productive river with floodplains full of grain and wildebeest and all of that sort of stuff, and then around it is just nothing. So we got the interesting bit and left the French for the rest.
You would think that there would have been more confrontation and conflict, but it appears that it seems less so.
Yes, well, it was sort of all the latter colonial period, wasn't it? When, you know, the end of the 19th century, where the European powers weren't really fighting each other, and so their colonies or protectorates would be living with each other. And I think the French could always cross the Gambia quite easily. It wasn't sort of closed off.
I think for a long time it was just grab what you can. Why would you bother fighting the person next door when you could just keep going inwards and out and leftwards and just rip off the locals instead of having a fight with a power equal to your own?
Up until then, it was only the bits that were economically viable, really, that could make money, that were colonised. So it's basically the coasts and the rivers. And then sort of in the 19th century, there was quite a lot of, okay, well, we now know what Africa looks like. We need to fill it out by taking as much of it as we can. I assume the British were there first because it's a case of getting the best bits. You know, it's like putting your towel on the beach.
Or on the river.
You know, if you get there first, you get the best bits.
I think it's more like putting your towel on the beach, where the beach actually has people living under your towel, and then you argue with your German neighbour about whose towel is there while sitting on top of some people who were there all along. Not my best metaphor, but still.
Well, that happened in East Africa and sort of between South Africa and German Southwest Africa in the First World War, didn't they? They were sort of, I think it was known as the Ice Cream War.
What, the Ice Cream War? Now there's a war I can get involved in.
Well, this is, you know, because it was hot and people were eating ice cream, I suppose, you know, so it was Kenya, Uganda and German Tanganyika.
There's few things that I would fight over, but I think ice cream's probably on that list.
So would you declare war on the seagulls, who are quite good at stealing ice cream?
They steal ice cream?
Oh, I've stole my mother's ice cream once.
Did they? Did you chase after it?
No, because we were laughing.
Oh, right. You're so mean to your mum. So, but we weren't here to talk about the Gambia. We were talking about Senegal.
Yes, but the facts that Pete gave during his lecture on Senegal were about Gambia, and they were wrong. So let's talk about Senegal.
Yeah. So, what are your general thoughts on it? Like, was there anything of interest? Anything that jumped out as especially interesting about the country that you didn't know?
I suppose I didn't know very much about Senegal, and if you'd have asked, I'd have given the lazy answer that it'd be a typical African dictatorship that's incredibly unstable, but it's not. That was very surprising.
That was quite a pleasant feature of the research, because normally when I've had these African nations, and then there's a civil war, and then a strongman comes in, and then he gets toppled, and then there's a massacre, and then everyone kills everyone else. And this one was like, they did all right, actually, so good on them. Well done, Senegal.
So what is your definition of a plethora? You said there were a plethora of sites.
There are 7, I think it was,
so
of UNESCO World Heritage sites.
So there are...
or more. 8 would also be a plethora, I feel.
Listen to you wriggling.
9 even, I'd go up to for a plethora. 10, you're looking at a near dozen.
That's a dethera.
A plethora of wonders of the world.
What is a plethora? Should he have said smorgasbord?
peak Friends assortment?
A heck of a lot.
Shed load?
I think 7 would have been probably a better term.
Or like a more accurate term.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That's quite a lot for a small country.
It really is.
How
impressive.
many are there in this country? I think there are only about 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, the UNESCO World Heritage thing does get around. Like, most of the episodes that we've done so far, they've all had their own little UNESCO World Heritage sign.
Well, one thing that did surprise me, apropos your podcast, was about there being no Bronze Age.
Right?
But
That was really surprising.
But what about, it's close to Benin with the Benin bronzes, so I don't understand. Explain.
So now you're asking me questions about Benin. That's not going to happen.
No.
I'm not being drawn into this game.
It's very next door to Benin, and Benin is well known for its bronze sculptures. So if there was,
That's fascinating.
Was there a Bronze Age in Benin and not in Senegal?
I didn't say there was never any bronze. I'm saying there wasn't a Bronze Age. So the Benin bronzes could well have been created after what we consider to be the Bronze Age, but made out of bronze.
I don't know. I'm deliberately trying to be awkward.
And succeeding.
It has been a triumph.
I've not heard of the Benin bronzes. Do these date back to that period then, Paul? Do you know?
I don't. I know that they're incredible works of art, and a lot of them were pilfered, and I
By
think,
us, very specifically.
and I'm sure some were handed back by the British Museum a little while ago.
All right, so, Lady Internet, when were the Benin bronzes, and also what are they?
Hello. This is the voice of the internet. The Benin bronzes are a group of metal artifacts that once decorated the royal palace in the Kingdom of Benin, in what is now Nigeria. The figurines, tusks, sculptures of rulers, plaques and masks were created from the 13th century onwards by indigenous cultures untouched by European influences. Contrary to the name, not all of the works were made of bronze, but also brass, wood, ceramic and ivory. Approximately 3,000 of the objects were looted by British soldiers in 1897 and have since been dispersed around the world. There is increasing pressure on guilty nations to return all artifacts to their rightful home. Thank you.
Ah, right, that's kind of cool.
So they're 13th century, so they're much, much later.
So I feel vindicated.
Yeah. But also a good spot by Paul, to be fair. I didn't question you enough. I just take everything that you say as gospel.
Gospel truth, absolutely. So you should. I don't want you bringing anything to the table. I don't need more skepticism in my life.
So we've gone about. So there wasn't a Bronze Age there.
No, apparently not. Isn't that fascinating that our Western view of the world is such that because we had a Bronze Age...
The world had a Bronze Age, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a Western view. It is a... I don't know what the sort of the collective is, but it's a sort of Mesopotamian view.
A Mesopotamian view.
Well, that sort of the cradle of Western civilization was sort of the Fertile Crescent, wasn't it, around there? And then we only ever hear of that story about sort of coming out into Europe and maybe going into Asia and India, but you never really hear about going over that land bridge into Africa and what was happening down there. I suppose it's a horrible term, but it was always known as the Dark Continent, wasn't it? Not much was known about it.
Yeah, true. So, I want to talk about tactile cravings. Twice in the episode. I don't know what it was. Something
overcame Ryan. It was very peculiar.
It was very odd, wasn't it? Like that whole pelican nasal filter. There was something about it in my head. Just felt. I just wanted to
like a honeycomb. I seem to recall you saying.
Yeah, just wanted to bite on it, and then I wanted to walk over the shell mountains of the Middens.
No, I've got sympathy with that. I can imagine crunch.
And also, I'd like to wear a pair of shell mittens.
I thought you were going to say a pair of pelicans on your hands.
No, that would be very uncomfortable.
Your episode was quite into heraldic beasts.
Heraldic beasts?
Heraldic beasts. And where to find them.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you were talking about martlets, or the birds with no feet that they thought.
Yeah.
That's a heraldic heraldic thing. And Vulning pelicans is another one.
What, a Vulning pelican?
Well, Vulning is the act of the pelican drawing blood from itself.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And both of those are quite often used in heraldry. I think the pelican is actually on the coat of arms of Buckinghamshire, I think.
Right. Has it got a pigeon in its mouth?
No, I think it's feeding its. And similarly, the liver bird in Liverpool is a Vulning pelican.
Oh, really?
No
I thought
way,
it was
really?
a kind of bird. I always thought it was live bird was a different mythical beast.
Like a martlet or like a...
No, I knew it was sort of pelican-ish, but I didn't realise it was actually a pelican. I thought it was a
Nor did I.
mythical bird.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it now, and I'm picturing like an eagle or something, but I guess not.
My
I
favourite.
think of Neris Hughes.
My favourite one is called the Bonacon, which is a weird sort of cross between a cow and an ox and a horse that squirts fiery dung out of its anus and covers and can cover acres of land in one go. And that's,
I'll admit, I wasn't expecting
and
that.
that's its superpower. I do have to admit, I had to hold that in reserve for when I was thinking about heraldic beasts. So I thought,
I think you've just described it, the next villain of the next Avengers film.
So whose coat of arms exactly features a bull
Go on.
jet
Go on.
firing a fiery jet from his rear end?
well, it's not a jet; it's actually feces that sets fire to anything it touches.
Like a napalm feces. Which is a great name for a band.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a jazz band, would you, with the name of Napalm Feces?
So tactile cravings, I looked it up online. I thought there might be like an actual thing. So I looked it up and I found like a forum where some people were talking about some very similar things, but these were all pregnant women.
You're not eating coal, are you?
No, but now you mention it, I wouldn't mind giving that a little nibble. One of them was saying that they had a strange craving for foam. All day they were just thinking about squeezing memory foam or like the foam of their washing up pad.
So not eating it. Not
Eating it, no, just to feel it, tactile. Then there was others that were saying, oh, the smell of gasoline when you're filling up your car.
Well, yes, I know what you mean there with petrol. The one that always gets me is creosote on fences.
Creosote on fences, yeah, very good. You like that smell?
Yes, I do. You're probably too old to remember that.
I mean, I'm not.
Too young, sorry, to remember.
Yeah, too old.
Well, you can be too old to remember many things.
Then there was one who, and I quote, OMG, my MIL's, which is mother-in-law's, my MIL's basement has this awesome sheetrock and mothball smell. I could stay down there for hours. It's so weird.
It's sort of like bubble wrap, isn't it? Popping bubble wrap. Is it possible not to pop bubble wrap?
That's exactly it.
I wouldn't trust anyone who had some bowl wrap and didn't at least have a little pop at it.
Right, or like a bean bag. Like I just want to put my hand into the beans of a bean bag, just feel those beans.
Why would you do something like that?
I imagine it would feel really nice.
Wow. We never know, I guess.
All right, next one is I'm obsessed with brushing my teeth. It feels so good. I actually cannot wait to get home from work so I can brush them for like 10 minutes and then again before bed. I wish I could do it every hour.
I was always told that you should only clean your teeth twice a day. Whatever.
I mean, 3 times a day was what I grew up with, but who has the time to do it at lunch?
Who's carrying a toothbrush around, really?
Now toothbrushes tell you which bits of your mouth you've missed, don't they?
They do.
Do they?
The electronic ones, yeah.
But that app only ever gets used about 3 times before everybody says enough.
So anyway, point being, I couldn't find out what that craving is.
Well, when you're brushing your teeth tonight, think, am I enjoying this enough? Should I be enjoying this more? How could I enjoy this more?
What?
Why?
Because you want your tactile sensations. I thought you were looking for other sensations.
And this
like your
woman
fucking
wants to
egg.
brush their teeth. I don't want to brush my teeth for 10 minutes. That's crazy. I just want to eat a pelican nose. What's wrong with that?
I don't know whether I should say this, but sticking a cotton bud in your ear and twiddling it around is quite a nice sensation. Especially when if you cough or something, you'll do your eardrum in.
It feels great. I agree. It's also massively illegal, and you'll go to prison for many years if you do that.
They do not.
All
like
the
that.
rules on the thing say do not stick them in your ears.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
police.
that's what everybody buys them for. It's a disclaimer, so they don't get taken to court.
Yeah, because somebody out there just yammed one in their ear so far, it formed part of their brain.
Pushes the wax in, doesn't it? So you end up with a barrier anyways. Really bad. You need to get a little spoon.
It's what they used to use. It's like a little ivory spoon that they used to use.
That's gross too, because now I'm thinking about what that might taste like.
I don't know. I don't know whether this is true, but I also heard that earwax is a Western thing. People from East Asia don't have earwax.
What?
It's oil. They have it as oil, and it seeps out. We have it as a solid in the West.
What? Why?
I just think it's a phenotype of some sort.
Lady of the Internet, do people in the East have oily ears versus people in the West's waxy ears?
According to scientists, 80 to 90% of Asian ears produce a dry and flaky wax, whereas African and Caucasian ears produce a wetter wax. This difference is determined by a single gene that alters the shape of a channel that controls the flow of molecules to directly affect earwax type. Researchers have found that many East Asians have a mutation in this gene which prevents cerumen, the molecule that makes earwax wet, from entering the mix. Wet wax enables the body to self-clean, trap insects and prevent dryness in the auditory canal. The usefulness of dry earwax is not yet understood. Outsides of the body, humans have used earwax in the past as both a lip balm and a salve for fixing wounds. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Fascinating.
That is interesting.
That is good stuff.
Pick one of those.
So you haven't had any further cravings? I'm now getting nervous about your weird cravings.
No, it was just purely that episode, and it started with a pelican nose, and it went from there. I did have a weird feeling about being inside a tree, though. That made me feel a little claustrophobic.
Well, but you shouldn't feel claustrophobic. I believe you're referring to the baobab, which
I am.
they
Yeah,
would bury the little storytelling griots in
Yeah.
from time to time. They're absolutely vast. They've got loads of room. Found one in a place called Sunland in South Africa, which they put a wine bar in.
Really?
Wow.
So and at one point they had a party with 60 people in the wine bar.
60 people in the tree.
That's what they say.
Did they have to evict the dead people?
Well, that was South Africa, so they probably had different customs.
Oh yeah, good point. Thanks, Paul. Always there to keep me on track.
There are some trees in this country, aren't there? Generally, they're yew trees that have that sort of similar habit of sort of the middle dies, yet there's an almost complete ring with like a door in it. And I think one was used as a bus shelter for a number of years.
Were people buried in yew trees?
No, but interestingly, yew trees are the typical tree that appears around cemeteries.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yes, I'm not sure I'm not sure of the reason why, but yew trees are associated with cemeteries.
That is interesting. Trees absorb things as well, though, don't they? Like oftentimes you might find like a road sign that's been placed next to a tree will be absorbed halfway through it. Into it.
Someone's left a bicycle somewhere and it's been eaten by a tree, essentially.
Yes, they will encroach upon solids. There are a couple of fences near me where chain link fences where the tree has sort of grown through the fence and then merged together again on the other side.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'd think that it would just sort of push the fence over rather than absorbing it. I guess it's so very slow that it just grows around it. I didn't think it grew from the outside, though. I thought it only grew from the inside and pushed the outside out, but then that doesn't make sense because it would just crack.
That's growing from the outside as well, isn't it? If the inside is growing, the outside is having to grow as well.
Yeah, I just thought it was a stretch, yeah.
But it's bark, and because I thought when you were saying that you were meaning like noxious stuff from the atmosphere, which they do. London plane trees placed by roads, their bark actually flakes off. The bark actually absorbs quite a lot of the toxic gases and stuff, noxious emissions from cars and people. It falls off over time and it regenerates the bark. I suppose you'd call it the skin or the dermis of of a tree. I do not know whether it's alive or not, but...
So when people like carve their names into the bark of a tree, it's like tattoos.
Tattoo. Yeah, like that tattoo Paul's got. Yeah, the galleon on his chest. From the time he crossed the equator.
He was in the Navy. I thought you meant the ones from when he was in that Russian prison.
Yeah, the teardrop for that man he killed. Yeah. In the gulag.
The men he killed. Yeah. Anything else on baobab trees?
Just to confirm that some of them have, the oldest was 1,200 some years old. So I was like, what could possibly live longer than that? And there are trees that are comfortably more than 4,000 years old.
What?
So I was finding out these microbes that can actually, they grow older, and then under certain conditions they grow younger. And they go back to a sort of previous larval type stage, and they are functionally immortal.
What, because they just get older and then young and then old and then young forever? That's amazing.
Even asking the question turned out to be more complicated than what's the longest lived thing, because it's like, do you count things that go dormant for 50 years? Is that alive for 50 years or is it not? Do you count a colony of mushrooms that all the mushrooms live and die and live and die and live and die, but it's all part of one biological mass? Is that a single creature that's all entity living for thousands of years?
It's like that thing about a broom that you replace the handle and the brush 15 times. It's still the same broom that you've got.
The ship of Theseus, I believe that's known in philosophical circles.
Broom of Theseus.
Well, that was he was a witch. He'd fly around on a broom.
Yeah. Let's talk about food.
Oh, yes,
I enjoyed the food. Thanks for bringing that.
It was absolutely my pleasure. Sorry you didn't get any, Paul.
Yes,
but,
I never
we ate a lot.
received any this time.
Well, you missed out. It was delicious.
So what, they sent it to you cold, or they sent you the ingredients and you cooked them up?
No, I had to go to Brighton, where Le Baobab is.
Why'd you go so far? That's like,
it's surprisingly difficult to
100
find
miles or
Senegalese
whatever it is.
restaurants. There are probably some in London, but Brighton is probably easier to get to overall. The one place I did contact was a kind of pop-up place, and it had not popped up. So I found myself heading to Brighton as a consequence. But generally speaking, African food doesn't have the kind of restaurant coverage of many of the other nationalities that we've come to kind of take for granted.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of their food is based on the two meats I don't like, lamb and goat.
Oh, I like a bit of goat. I'm not a fan of lamb, but I do like a goat.
Yeah, granted, goat is better than lamb, but I'd still take a cow anytime. Something you can put out of context.
Is that the furthest you've ever gone to get a meal?
Just to get a meal?
Yeah, that you've travelled specifically and only to get food.
Oh, that's going to take some thought. No, probably not.
What about you, Paul? It's like the furthest you've gone to get a meal.
First, I've gone to get a meal.
You've never jumped on a plane to fly to Rome just to get a pizza and then fly back again?
No, I haven't, funnily enough. No.
Do you have a favourite restaurant abroad?
A favourite restaurant abroad? I've got a favourite restaurant at home.
McDonald's does not count.
Oh, come on, he loves his nuggets.
Well, I could give an advert for La Trompette in Chiswick, which is very good.
Why not?
Go on.
They're not paying us, but you never know, one day.
Well, yes. Well, I just have. How far...
That's all you get.
I did once go on a holiday that was largely culinary based, and I took last year, in fact, a cheese tour where we drove around the country going to cheese places, including Cheddar and Wensleydale.
That's amazing.
They're quite a distance apart.
It was a week-long tour. We weren't mucking about, mate.
So maybe that counts.
It's in the grey area, I think.
Have you ever had squeezy cheese, like a can of cheese?
Not knowingly, no. I don't understand that. Cheese is some of the most flavourful thing that you can possibly buy and eat. And then you get something that is processed and sprays out of a can. It's just utterly...
convenient.
Pathetic.
I think when I'm doing my apocalypse prepping, I'm going to go for the canned cheese. Although I could age my cheddar in a sort of cave-like environment.
Yeah, you totally could. That's probably better, isn't it?
My bunker.
Well, I think my apocalypse kit is a pack of potassium cyanide.
On a cracker.
Yes, you might as well make it nice. Shove it in the middle of a bit of foie gras.
Oh, let's talk about the national anthem.
Oh,
We've had a lot of
yes.
feedback. The national anthem was really popular. Most people agree with me that it's the best of the national anthem so far,
It absolutely is, no doubt. And
despite being an entire thievery,
a rip-off.
total
An
rip-off
absolute carbon copy.
of
He's the judge, judging all of the things we does.
Yes, about 3 bars out of an enormously long song.
Well, I sought legal advice, and apparently we are not able to sue on the frankly spurious grounds that they wrote it 60 years before we wrote ours.
It's nothing.
A more ambitious lawyer might have taken the case, but this guy was not interested.
Well, maybe they could meet us on the middle ground and they could just change the lyrics to their Senegalese national anthem to include he's the judge, judging all of the
Pop it
things
at the
we
end,
does.
don't mess with what they've got. We just have a last go round
Last
into
refrain.
that bit, and
A reprise.
A little Paul Dursley reprise.
who do we write to make that happen?
Senegalese government.
Dear Senegalese, dear the government.
Please change your national anthem lyrics. A, to a language you don't speak, and
Yeah.
B,
To reference Paul Dursley.
Okay, if there are any Senegalese Wolof speakers out there who are willing to record he's the
that'd be
judge,
amazing.
judge for us in Wolof, that would be fantastic.
That would be really good, yeah.
He's the judge, judging all of the things we does. He's the judge, his name's Paul Dursley. All rise for the judge.
Paul, this is your opportunity before we get into the actual grading. Is there anything that you wanted to know more information about? Anything that you needed more clarification on before you cast your...
well, first of all, you've
Your
clarified the Benin bronzes and
Yeah.
and got rid of the inconsistency of the no Bronze Age bronzes.
I've been found innocent, is how I like to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
He's dropped the first charge. This is promising.
The judge is reflecting.
He's retired to his chambers.
Well, it is a bit bad thinking that the Gambia spoke French.
I mean, I don't want to in any way steer the course of justice. But where do you stand, my lord, on the subject of
Objection,
flight?
objection, Your Honour.
No, ignore that, Your Honour.
Leading the witness.
Well, this is an interesting point, isn't it? I think Pete, to give Pete credit, he did it much better than the Bahamas by not invoking a time machine.
That's true. There was no time machine involved.
Oh, I suppose a little bit of lateral thinking might have got better marks, but what else could fly at that time? Ryan, what would you have done?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question.
I think we know what he would have done. He would have already said, oh, they must have had hot air balloons.
Yeah. I would have chased that down until the final day of research. Desperate to find like an arrow or a spear, maybe. I would have done
Spears fly.
something.
Yeah, well, okay, if I was being negative, would say it's a bit of a cop out.
Yes.
But if I was being
Objection.
positive, I'd say, if I was being positive,
Sustained.
I would have said there's not much else to choose from. I think I have to go down. I think I have to mark it down because of the lack of lateral thinking around the subject. I will give it a B-.
Understood. I accept that, Your Honour, my lord.
Yeah, when is my wig coming? I've been waiting for my wig.
It's true, we should get you a wig. You really want to wear a wig in this heat?
Oh, mate.
I want a full bottom wig. I had a look. They're £2,700 for a new one.
Well, then that's it. That's all the time that we've got for the verdict this week. Thanks all for listening. If you'd like to get in touch about any of the things that we've talked about in this episode or in indeed the actual episode on Senegal, you can do that by contacting us at hhepodcast@gmail.com or at hhepodcast.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And you never know, you might feature on a future show like...
Terry Towell 71, who has very kindly left us a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Terry Towell.
Yeah, and he said, you will come for Pete and Ryan, but you will definitely stay for the erudite Paul.
Erudite Paul, which we think might be referring to you.
Yeah, in such that we think maybe you wrote this and you are Terry Towell.
We haven't looked up what erudite means yet, though.
Yeah.
So it could be someone else. It could be another Paul.
I think it's also a synonym for...
Have you been writing reviews, Paul? That's the question.
I might write reviews if I could be bothered, but I'm not.
Anyway, that was a nice review. So thank you, Terry Tao 71.
Agreed.
Yes, I suppose I better agree, but no.
You can find us on all the main social media. You know where to come. You know, the Twitters and the YouTubes and the TikToks and the Facebooks and the Instagrams. Any of them at hhepodcast.
All right, so we're going to be back again soon with another episode of History Happened Everywhere. Episode 33, Greenland, and it's 1903 to 1976, and the subject of Curiosity Killed the Cat.
I really don't understand, Ryan. When you get a wild card, why don't you pick an easy one?
I thought that was an interesting attempt to utilise the wild card.
Of all the countries in the world.
Technically, Greenland is not a country, but we won't go there.
I'm going to just adjust my notes.
Hang on, this is like the judge can't give you clues.
Yeah. Okay, so we're recording that one soon, and it'll be out and in your podcast slots soon.
Park, podcast hole, podcast
wallet,
den. So if you can't bear to wait, you can always go back over our old shows in the archive in hhepodcast.com or YouTube or all the other places where you can find our podcast, where there's a bunch of old stuff which is as magnificent as it always is.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we just need to say goodbye to Mr. Paul. Bye, Mr. Paul.
Bye, Mr. Paul.
Au revoir.
So erudite.
He's so erudite.
So erudite.
All right, so I guess all that's left to say is...
You've been listening to...
History Happened Everywhere.
The verdict.
I've been inspired, Paul, and I was wondering how you might describe yourself were you to be forced. So I'm going to give you some adjectives.
Mm-hmm.
First one, extraordinary.
Yes.
No hesitation there whatsoever.
Next one, breathless.
No.
Perilous.
No.
Sardonic.
Yes.
Tender.
No.
It's like a lamb.
Luscious.
No.
Downturned.
Yes.
Like a good hospital bed.
Oh no, this one's fat.
Wow, it feels like the others were hedging around. And then this one's like, no, let's get on with this.
Yes.
Puckered.
Well, I'm just sipping a glass of white wine, so I do pucker up when that goes in.
All right, young, middle-aged or old?
Middle-aged.
Short, medium or tall?
Medium.
Round, oval, square or long face?
Would you want to give me my ectomorphic dimensions?
Turned up nose, small nose or long nose?
Slightly turned up.
Small ears, large ears?
I have no idea what the sizes of my ears are. I never look at them.
Large mouth, small mouth?
Normal mouth.
Normal mouth. Were there any others? Hair. We haven't covered hair.
Short and brown.
Mexican?
Well, I think I can let you work that one out.
Fair enough.